really to promote SMART as somebody that really knows about what's happening in terms of latest trends in technology, as well as an organization that's really thinking towards the future. It also encourages a lot of interdisciplinary work. So we have mechanical engineers who work with electrical engineers, who work with graphic designers, and because of the lab, they can come up with ideas and be working together rather than feeling like they have to only do what's defined by their job. And a lot of what makes a lab successful is just calling it a lab. There were a lot of activities that were already happening. So in terms of the structure of the lab, we have a blog, which is our outward presence. We have projects, which I'm going to show a few of today. We have activities, and then we have an actual space. The space is the loosest part of it. And that's getting better and better, but we found that the really important thing was giving people, again, permission and establishing that this was something that was respected and encouraged by the larger organization, so that people didn't feel like they were goofing off, because we knew that that really valuable work was happening. So, one thing that's important, our organization has 3 offices in Barcelona, San Francisco, and New York. So we have lab chiefs appointed in each of those offices. Really getting to know people. Labs really run off passion. And passion really comes from getting to know people personally. So having somebody in each office who actually sees people on a day-to-day basis, has coffee with them, knows what people are thinking about, is something that is very important. Now, another thing, a lab like this really is kind of an extracurricular activity. So in terms of budget and timing, it's something that has to happen in between client projects. Client projects are how we make our money. And this is really the core of what is very challenging for a lab. But what I try to do is I try to, this is an example of an email from someone who said, I have some time, is we try to harness that time and that passion in between projects. When people say, well, I don't want to think about the client's problem right now, I want to think about something that's just maybe a little bit geeky. And this is a way to encourage that. So in terms of people getting involved, there are projects, there are also blog posts. So blog posts are kind of a low overhead way for people to be involved with the organization. And projects are higher overhead. Projects require a bit of a commitment. Projects require maybe staying at work late a few nights. And then, but if someone knows that they're not able to put that level of commitment, they can still participate in brainstorms. So we have a website. You can visit us at smartinteractionlab.com. We make sure to have a very specific voice on that website. We try to be playful, we try to be punchy, but we're also a little bit prescient. We are product designers. Our firm has 30 years of experience in professional product design. So we do have a lot of know-how behind us. The outward presence has 3 sections. We have things we see. So again, when we are very busy with projects and we're maybe client projects and maybe not producing so much, we can still have a dialogue with the world. We can still say, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. These are the 5 microcontrollers that we're anxious to get our hands on. And then, of course, things we make are our projects. And the topics that we're really focused on is this intersection between the physical and the digital, because this is where we see the most opportunity coming on the horizon. We've had a lot of work in the physical world. Smart design has been very adept at industrial design for many decades. We're also very adept at interface and the interaction world, and a lot of that work in the recent past has been in screen interfaces. But what we know that is really powerful is when those 2 things come together. So that's where the lab is trying to be particularly forward-thinking. So activities are really important too. We've tried to have a number of tinker sessions. We find that a lot of people, those of us in the audience, are probably more passionate about making and maybe know a little bit more than other people, but people want to know how to learn to use Arduino. They may have heard of it. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that people within the organization can learn from other people. So we've had tinker sessions, which try to happen on a regular basis. Again, it's always challenging in between client projects. Workshops and lectures are something that we also do. We do a lot of outreach. Another thing that's really great about a lab is it connects your organization with the outside world, so that other people know that you have some really special expertise, that you're really thinking about the things that their organization might want for you. And then outreach. So we try to do a lot of writing. This is actually a screenshot from a piece that I did in January that was on the cover of the Sunday Review of the New York Times. It featured a robotic lamp as well as all the other things that are going to be robotic in our environment. So the core thing, I think, for an organization is to really harness the energy that's already there and the activities that are already happening. If you think about your workplace, maybe you know somebody who's already tinkering and building, and maybe you can think of a way that that can help your work. So as an example, I'd like to show some past projects. So these are projects that actually were already happening before we called it a lab. So we had a photo sharing application that we had coded in Flash, but it connected to the Flickr API. People could email it, and it would show on the map where people from within the company had taken pictures. We had done a recipe app where we studied the structure of the recipe, and we redesigned it and did an iPad prototype. It's just sometimes those simple things. Like, we noticed that we were using a lot of batteries in our flip cameras and in other devices as well. So why not just have batteries that can be tethered to your computer but still have the form factor of a battery? So we'll actually build that kind of thing. We have a human-powered Earth Day sign, and in the lower, your right-hand corner, a lot of people don't know that Little Bits was actually started at Smart Design. Aya Badir, who's been very active in the maker community and has grown a fantastic company, actually was a researcher with another colleague, and they were working on the Little Bits project. So some of our first projects were something called Lumi. So Lumi is what you see here are kind of cartoony pictures of some of the types of projects that are worked on at Smart Design. So, for example, we did a floor cleaning vacuum cleaner, much like the Roomba, for a client called Nito Robotics. And what we found was that looking at Roomba and other appliances is that those products have to communicate with light. And it becomes its own language. In the past, lights would only be on and off. And that was all that appliance manufacturers could really afford. Now we have lights that can glow, they can change color, we can have multiple ones of them. So those start to create a language. Like your Roomba will actually make a different sound when it's stuck under the couch than when it's finished cleaning. So we want to study what is that language. So we created a box that actually has within it a number of LEDs. And then we created an easy way for designers who don't know how to code to create that animation of the LEDs by using Flash on the timeline. So they could change colors on the screen using no code at all. And then that would actually change the lights that show up. And what we did is we tried it in a couple of different situations. One situation was in a conference room. So we tried putting it so that it would glow behind the door. That's the top two images. And we do these video scenarios, which I'll also show you a few of. So we decided to take our light box and let it be controlled by RFID tags. And we made these different tags. So one that says join in, one that says please don't disturb, and then we use those to trigger different light sequences. Similarly, on the bottom, we use the RFID tags to let somebody use the light box as a way to show their mood at the desk. So if they were in a do not disturb kind of mood, they could put that avatar there, or if they were in an kind of open mood, they could put a different avatar there, and that would change the light. So we're trying to study different situations with our own tools for exploration. Another thing that we've always been interested in is how can we use physical objects as a way to control digital interfaces. So if we just started with the most simple geometry, let's say a cube, where you can put it on different sides. So if the cube is, our first experiment was again with just facial expressions as avatars. So there are two sides that have displays and then 4 sides of the cube. So when you turn it on one side, it has a smile. On the other side, it has a surprised expression. And this is just one application, but we could see this being used also to select among spaces, to select among, let's say, favorite applications. And I'll show you a little video of the experiment. So this is a great example of just a quick experiment. We said, what if you use this cube as a way to navigate a menu? And we threw an accelerometer along with an Arduino into our 3D printed enclosure. So again, it's just really a quick experiment to, so I have a few more experiments that I'd like to share. Did we get it back? Oh, okay. As I'm restarting, I'm going to talk about the next one, which was a future of TV experiences. So we have a designer in our Barcelona office named Junior Castro, and he had been exploring facial recognition using camera vision. And he found a number of open source software, code bits online, and what he did is he started creating this smart TV experience where it would be able to detect the difference between me and someone else, and if I walked into the room, it would give me a television interface. So using open source tools, he was able to, again, in between client projects, create this future TV experience that's actually brought us a lot of attention from potential clients, because now we expose our expertise in a real way. Another project that's one of my favorites is called the Apron Alert. And this project is probably a really perfect project. And let's see, I think I need to show this in the browser. So the Apron Alert project is a pretty quick experiment, and actually I see Mark running in the audience. What it does is it's an apron that tweets. And when you close the clasp, so there's a magnetic clasp in the back, and when you close the clasp, it sends out a message to a select group of people that cooking has begun. And when you open the clasp, it sends a message out letting people know that cooking is done and it's time to come to the table. And I call this kind of a perfect interaction lab experiment. It emerged because we have we wanted to do something in the kitchen with the Internet of Things. And so when we brainstormed putting those two things together, we said, hey, what if you had an apron that tweets? And it's just one of those small kinds of questions. Again, we're doing this work in between client projects, so it's not a fully focused effort, but we do want to be able to ask some simple questions and answer them through making, as opposed to other ways. Another series of projects that have recently been shown at Maker Faire in Barcelona is called Totem. So Totem are actually a series of objects that help people brainstorm better. So this is a little esoteric, but what they're doing is they're trying to find the emotional needs that people have during brainstorms. So this first one is, we're calling it the modern day talking stick. And technically it's fairly simple in terms of building, but what's really lovely is how it really fits the need of addressing the shyer people in a brainstorm. So what often happens when you put a group of people together in the room is that one person dominates, and invariably one person also kind of shrinks in the corner. So by having a talking stick that is timed, it will actually force the interaction so that those people who maybe are more shy will know that they will have their chance to talk. So this one is best explained through a video. So I'm going to play that video. Happens, that's a common thing for designers, is that we want random input. So we may forget about a conversation or something that happened, and this piece that's called Echo will capture sound throughout the day, and then as you pick it up, it will randomly tell you the sound. And these are actual functioning prototypes, again, that were shown at Maker Faire in Barcelona. So here's the video to explain that concept. And the third one is a series of rings that can be, everyone who's in the brainstorm can take one, and depending on the color that glows on the ring, that's the point of view that they're supposed to take. So they may be positive, they may be negative, they may be neutral. And this forces someone to have to take a positive spin on something, even though they may not want to take that attitude. And what's particularly lovely about these projects is that yes, there are prototypes, and yes, they show that we are makers, but it actually brokered the conversation about what is smart design, and what is brainstorming, and why do you brainstorm, and what value does that have. And so they serve as these kind of stories that contain a little bit of information about your organization, and they can be out there in the world. So in terms of some current ongoing projects, one of the ones that we're looking at now is called StressBot. So one of the really important parts that we feel about our lab is to engage with the internal culture. So within our organization, we've had a health initiative, a really strong health initiative for the last year, where we've been looking at healthier eating, and reducing stress has been one of those things. So I have been given as a really fun holiday gift this pulse sensor, which can read your heart activity by knowing the difference in color in your skin. You hold it up to your skin, it holds the light, and it also reads the light back. And we knew we wanted to do something around stress, and what's really lovely about the maker movement is that I was actually able to call up Joel Murphy, one of the creators of this, and have him come visit our office and actually talk about the science of stress and the science of reading heart activity. And so what we've been doing is we've been connecting this to a small console that will not only tell you whether or not you're in the physiological state of stress, but also offer you breathing exercises that can help you reduce that state, at least for the moments that you're interacting with the device. Another thing that we're in the process of doing is, since we have 3 offices in 3 different locations, we're looking at having boxes that are each connected to the internet and can show us some characteristic of what's going on there. So we're in the midst of exploring, and feel free to email us if you have ideas of what kinds of sensors can tell us what's going on in those offices. An obvious one would be the temperature in each of those cities. Another one is the noise. We were thinking maybe the number of times people go to the coffee pot, the number of times the door is open. But these are icons that represent each of the cities. So we have New York, San Francisco, and Barcelona, and we plan to have these boxes in each of those offices. And they'll be continuously displaying a light that is indicating some live data. Another thing that we have going on, we have an engineer, his name is Eli Warden, and he was really excited about skateboarding, because he's an avid skateboarder. And so he approached the lab and said, would this be valuable? And of course it's valuable because we do work on sports equipment. We do have clients that would be interested in connected sports or exercise devices. So what we've been doing is we've been trying to help him to visualize sports data by connecting the accelerometer and the gyroscope and ultimately, hopefully, GPS. We are hoping to be able to identify locations where it will be good to do certain activities. So we're in the midst of getting visualization from the skateboard. So having him actually skate on it and being able to tell the difference between a flat surface or going downstairs or jumps or being on a ramp. And the other thing we're doing is just keeping our eye out for some of the tools that are out there in the Internet of Things. Maybe not things that we've necessarily built, but things that other labs have built, or those on-the-fringe maverick products. So this is twine that was created by Super Mechanical, that actually originally grew out of the MIT Media Lab and is now its own company in Austin. And twine will let you hook up a sensor, and then you can have that sensor data be read through a cloud service. So, for example, I can set it up at home and I can have it send me a text message when it gets too cold for my dog in the house. And then I'll know to call my neighbor and say, hey, can you get the dog in and close the door? Another thing we've been playing with are the Ninja Blocks. Ninja Blocks are a similar series of tools that will let you get live data. So they have a temperature sensor, temperature, humidity, they have a door open, they have a magnet sensor to know whether the door is open or closed, and they have a push button sensor. But we wanted to create some of our own sensors. So what we did is the Ninja Blocks communicate via RF, and we were able to create our own RF board, and then we actually had a circuit board created. And then this also helps us, and we contact Ninja Blocks, and then we have this relationship now with the creators of this really great tool for Internet of Things, and we can work with them. So, finally, what's really helpful for any organization is putting your ideas into context. So being able to justify it in a way. How does this relate to what we do? Because often those amongst us in the office who are really excited about this will say, but of course, it's the Internet of Things. We can have a sensor on the coffee pot. Like, how is that not cool? But you really need to put that into context. So, for example, the same engineer who was working on the skateboard came into the office with this. Now, this is a robot on treads that will move. Maybe we can take some have like a lab session and look. Now, first of all, it teaches us a lot about motor control by tinkering with this. But secondly, we can also think about, what if we had a floor cleaning vacuum? When we were working with people who had Roombas and studying them, we found that they clear out the room and they only want the robot to go in a certain place, and they still want to have some control. So this was a way for us to think about, what if you had a leash on a vacuum cleaner? And we started sketching around what that would be. Like, what would that device be like? It would be like sort of like a pet on a leash, but it would still be a vacuum cleaner. And so those are the kinds of things that we want to make connections among. Also, this is Ron, who runs our model shop, and he had created a dolly for the iPhone. It was an iPhone mount with roller skate wheels on a dolly. And so, we thought, well, wouldn't that be interesting? We're doing a lot of work with studying how to take 3D images, and we've been looking at 123D Catch, and certainly Autodesk is someone on the horizon with whom we have a relationship. So we started connecting this dolly with their iPhone app, which will take images and then generate a 3D file. Similarly, we were approached by PSFK, which is a trend building organization here, and they asked us to do something around the future of work. So because we already had our cube experiment, that was something that we were able to build into a vision. So what we have here is actually a future of work where your entire computing is in a cube, and maybe you have 4 work surfaces, and you turn that cube in order to change among create and communicate, and another one. So in terms of what's next, we're still looking into Internet of Things. We'd love to connect Internet of Things with sustainability, and please look us up online. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you.